For 5 centuries, it was an unstoppable force. Its legions were invincible. Its engineers built marvels. Its wealth was beyond imagination. This empire didn't just rule, it defined the ancient world. But then, it shattered. So what really caused the mighty Roman Empire to fall? Conventional history points to barbarian hordes, but the truth is far more fascinating. Rome wasn't destroyed by a single enemy. It was rotted from within by 5. My dear friends, you've found Rise and Relic, where we separate legend from legacy. And in this video, we're uncovering the fatal cocktail of problems that led to one of history's greatest downfalls. Let's begin. Welcome to the Rise and Relic. To understand the fall, we first need to see its peak. At its height under Emperor Trajan in 117 AD, the Roman Empire was a marvel. It had over 70 million people, 25,000 miles of pristine roads and aqueducts that delivered fresh water to bustling cities. But this vast size became its first major weakness. The empire was simply too big to govern effectively. Communication from the frontier back to Rome could take months. Emperors in the capital struggled to control ambitious generals in far-off provinces. In 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian tried to solve this by splitting the empire in 2, a Western Roman Empire and an Eastern Roman Empire. This didn't save the West, it just allowed the wealthier, more stable East, later known as the Byzantine Empire, to survive for another 1,000 years, while the West began to crumble. Reason number 1, a Game of Thrones on steroids. In the 100 years between 235 and 285 AD, Rome was rocked by the crisis of the 3rd century. During this time, the empire saw over 25 emperors. Most didn't die of old age. They were assassinated, killed in battle by rival Romans, or executed. Imagine the chaos. There was no clear line of succession. The secret to power wasn't bloodline. It was who had the loyalty of the most legions. This created a cycle where generals were constantly fighting each other instead of protecting the empire's borders. The position of emperor became a death sentence. Let's dive into reason number 2, a catastrophic economic meltdown. The constant civil wars of the 3rd century were ruinously expensive. To pay the ever-growing, ever-demanding army, emperors resorted to a desperate trick. They started debasing the currency. They took the standard silver coin, the Antoninianus, and systematically reduced its precious metal content. What was once a coin of nearly 50% pure silver was, within a few decades, a copper piece with just a thin silver wash, containing less than 5% silver. It looked the part, but it was a fiscal illusion. This was a fundamental betrayal of the monetary system that had underpinned Roman commerce for centuries. The result was predictable and devastating. Hyperinflation. The money became practically worthless. A bag of coins was now needed to buy what a single coin once could. In a desperate attempt to halt the spiral, Emperor Diocletian issued his edict on maximum prices in 301 AD, fixing the price of everything from eggs to labour. But you can't command an economy. The edict failed spectacularly, creating massive black markets and causing goods to vanish from sale. With its currency destroyed, the state resorted to collecting taxes in kind, demanding grain, leather and labour directly from its citizens. The government was broke, and its people were crushed under the weight of its demands. Meanwhile, at the borders, trouble was brewing. Reason number 3, the barbarian invasions. But here's the twist. The problem wasn't just that barbarian tribes like the Goths, Vandals and Huns were pushing in. It was that the Roman army was no longer truly Roman. The empire was facing a severe manpower crisis. Centuries of war, plague and economic hardship had led to a declining population. There simply weren't enough Roman citizens willing or able to serve in the legions. So the army was forced to recruit the very barbarians they were meant to be fighting. These mercenaries, known as federati, were cheaper and readily available, but their loyalty was a transaction. It belonged to their paymaster and their immediate commander, not to the abstract idea of Rome. They often had no real stake in preserving the empire, and would switch allegiances for a better offer, sometimes in the middle of a campaign. Reason number 4, the Gothic refugee crisis. In the late 4th and 5th centuries, a new and terrifying force supercharged Rome's border problems: the Huns. Their violent migration from the Central Asian steppes created a domino effect, pushing massive Germanic tribes like the Goths to flee directly toward the Roman frontiers. The Romans, facing a humanitarian and military crisis, made a fateful choice. They allowed hundreds of thousands of Goths to cross the Danube and settle inside the empire as allies. But corrupt Roman officials brutally exploited the desperate refugees, leading to a massive rebellion. The result was the catastrophic Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, where a Gothic army annihilated a Roman force and killed the Eastern Emperor Valens himself. It was a devastating blow from which the Roman military psyche would never fully recover. The policy of relying on barbarian troops to defend the empire had backfired spectacularly, creating powerful armed groups with no true loyalty to Rome. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. A Visigoth army, led by their king Alaric, marched into Italy and sacked the city of Rome itself. For the first time in 800 years, the eternal city had been breached by a foreign enemy. The psychological shockwave reverberated across the entire world. If Rome itself could fall, what was safe? Yet even worse was to come. In 455 AD, the Vandals sailed from North Africa and subjected Rome to a second, more brutal sack, methodically stripping it of its remaining wealth. Reason number 5, collapse of imperial authority. The final quiet end came in 476 AD. The Roman army in Italy, by now almost entirely composed of Germanic mercenaries, mutinied. Their commander, a chieftain named Odoacer, overthrew the last Roman emperor in the west, a powerless boy ironically named Romulus Augustulus, a diminutive echo of Rome's founder and its first emperor. Odoacer saw no need for the charade to continue. He sent the imperial regalia to the emperor in Constantinople, declaring that the West no longer needed an emperor of its own. The Western Roman Empire was officially extinct. So, what was the main cause? As you've seen, it wasn't one single fatal blow. It was a complex and deadly combination of interconnected failures, a true systems collapse. A corrupt and unstable political system where emperors rose and fell with terrifying speed made long-term planning impossible. This political chaos fueled a bankrupt economy where debased currency and crushing taxes destroyed public trust and crippled trade. An overstretched military, starved of funds and manpower, could no longer secure the vast frontiers. And finally, relentless external pressure from migrating peoples exploited every one of these internal weaknesses. The fall of Rome wasn't a singular event. It was a process, a slow, agonizing burn of decay from within, which left the empire hollowed out and unable to withstand the final violent shocks from without. The story of the Western Roman Empire is a powerful cautionary lesson in the fragility of even the greatest civilizations. It teaches us that no empire, no matter how powerful or seemingly eternal, is immune to the consequences of its own internal failures. Complexity can become a weakness, and the very systems that enable growth can, if neglected, trigger a catastrophic decline. But the story of Rome didn't entirely end in 476 AD. If you were fascinated by the fall of the West, you'll be captivated by the incredible story of the Byzantine Empire. the eastern half that not only survived but thrived for another 1,000 years. How did it endure where the West crumbled? In our next video, we'll journey to the magnificent city of Constantinople, walk its legendary walls, and meet figures like the ambitious Emperor Justinian and the brilliant Empress Theodora. We'll explore how they navigated their own crises to forge a new legacy. To continue this incredible journey through history, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. And let us know in the comments, which fallen empire do you want us to cover next? Thanks for watching.